Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'm in Windham, Maine, home of Windham Weaponry. If you recall, a few months ago I did a review of a couple of Windham rifles and I was pretty impressed with the quality of the rifles. So I wanted to do a factory tour. The guys here at Windham are very gracious inviting us out, so we're going to go inside, take a look around and bring you along. So let's head inside and see what goes into building these rifles. My goal in coming out to Windham was to see what goes into the building of a Windham rifle. I wanted to learn more about their company and see for myself what might set them apart in the marketplace. First, let's hear from Mark Eliason, who's the VP of Sales and Marketing for Windham.
Hi, I'm Mark Eliason, Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Windham Weaponry. Today we'd like to give you a tour of our facility and show the people who will help make this all happen. We're very proud to be in the marketplace and hope you enjoy our tour today.
The first thing I wanted to learn more about was their quality control program. For me, this is where the rifle build really starts. So our first stop was their quality control folks.
My name is Roger Cody. I'm a quality inspector at Windham Weaponry. We get our barrel blanks in from our manufacturer. When they receive them in, we do our AQL inspection. Basically out of a box of say 250, we'll pull out 50 of them just so we get a good overview of the barrel shape, form, length, rifling itself. We visually inspect and also do our air gauge of the blank to make sure it's going to be within our tolerances that we look for. Once we're all set with the blank, we send it to our machine shop where it is turned to the barrel profile. This one, for example, is a 16M4 barrel. Once the barrels from that point will go to our chroming house. And the chamber and a bore both get chrome lined. Comes back to us, we headspace, visually inspect, and air gauge 100% of the barrels that come back, looking for any kind of discrepancy such as pitting in a bore, rings in a chamber, lack of chrome, anything that will deem this barrel to make it less accurate. From this point, it goes up. Once we approve these barrels, saying that they pass our quality standard, we pack them back up, send them up to our machine shop again, where they're assembled to the profile, such as a 16M4 or our Picatinny rail gas block or whichever profile we come up with. At that point, they come back to us, and we will visually inspect again 100% of all the barrels, ensuring that they're properly assembled, have the right handguard cap, making sure the sights look appropriate. Sometimes they look kind of pitty or dinged up from when they're in transit. So we make sure everything looks appropriate and assembled correctly. And plug each gas port so when they go to the finish house, it doesn't get sandblast material. At that point, it goes to the finish house and we end up getting our completed barrel. From that point, it goes up to the production floor and then gets built into a gun.
After the quality check of components is complete, the parts head over to the assembly area to be built into complete rifles. This is one of several benches where the assembly of the upper receiver takes place here at Windham. The upper receiver will come in and be put onto this jig, and the upper receiver will already have the forward assist and the port cover, the ejection port cover in place. What they need to do here is install the barrel, the gas tube, and the muzzle device on the rifle. Now you'll notice that this upper receiver is sitting on this jig that engages the star inside of the chamber area. That's so when they torque this barrel down, they don't damage the upper receiver. Then you'll notice that the guys also put this muzzle device on, and they'll visually make sure that this device is lined up perfectly with the rifle, so it lines up with the front sight post. You don't have a flash suppressor that's sitting off to one side or the other, the ports on it. Once they get done with that, they'll bring the upper receiver over to here, and they'll fit hand guards onto the rifle. Now, one of the things I noticed that they were doing here, which I thought was really cool, it's one of those little minute attention to detail things that really makes this rifle stand out, at least in my mind. They'll put the hand guards on the rifle, they'll feel for ledges on either side, and if they find any ledges, they'll take a file or a razor blade and they'll fit these hand guards to the rifle so that when you pick the rifle up, the hand guards fit perfectly. This is the assembly area where lower receivers are assembled. You'll start off with a lower receiver like this one. There's nothing in it. It just has all the holes and everything, but it's ready to have everything put together. The first step in the process is they use this arbor press to press in the pin that holds the trigger guard in. They'll also, at this stage, put the magazine catch in the rifle. After you put the trigger guard on and the magazine catch in, the next step in the process is to install the bolt stop or the bolt catch on the rifle and put the front pivot pin in. That takes place at this stage. All the tools that you need to accomplish that are done right here. I also want to point out that everybody that's involved in the assembly process, they're very careful to make sure that they're not getting overtaxed or overworked, or that they're not having problems with their hands. They take regular breaks throughout the assembly process, and they also do hand stretches and hand exercises to make sure that they're not getting, like carpal tunnel syndrome or something like that. They're very cautious about making sure that people that are assembling these rifles can do so in a comfortable and safe environment. It's good to know that they were doing that. It was fun to see that as well. The final step in assembling the lower, minus the buffer tube and the rear takedown pin, is to put the trigger assembly in and also put the pistol grip on the lower receiver. And that takes place here. You'll notice that all the parts necessary, if you're familiar with stripping the AR-15, are right here in these bins. We have hammers, we have disconnectors, we have little tiny star lock washers, everything that you need, the bolt that holds the pistol grip on, all right here. Now, it's also interesting to note that people don't sit at these benches every single day for years on end. They rotate the people throughout the assembly process. So one day you're putting lower receivers together, the next day you may be putting upper receivers together. That keeps the work interesting, and it also cross-trains everybody in the process. So if somebody's out sick or something like that, everybody can do the job of assembling the rifles. The final step in putting the lower receiver together takes place at this stage. They'll take the lower that we've already put the trigger group in, the pistol grip on. They'll bring the lower over here, put it on this block, and now it's time to install the buttstock and the buffer tube assembly. Each of these employees are keeping a mindful eye, I found, for quality checks. They're looking over each part as they're assembling the rifle. If at any point they find a problem, a blemish in the finish, a part that doesn't quite fit right, they throw it in the reject box, they move on, they grab another part, and they continue the assembly process. So once we get the lower receiver put together with the buttstock on it, now it's time to mate the upper and lower receivers together, take it over to test firing, then over to final QA. One of the things that's really impressed me on my tour of the Windham facilities is the attention to detail. They don't just take a box of parts and put it together and send it out the door. Each of these employees is really taking their time putting these parts together, making sure everything fits and works properly. And again, that's impressed me. As an example of that, every barreled upper receiver that goes through this facility is checked to make sure that the sights align properly. They'll take a laser bore sighter, put it in, and check to make sure that the windage and elevation is on. They have certain specifications. If it falls outside of those specs, this upper will be rejected, and it'll try to fix it. If they can't, that's it. It doesn't go out. It doesn't get shipped. It's that type of attention to detail, again, that's really impressed me. This is the test firing facility for Windham. Every rifle that gets manufactured comes through this facility and gets test fired. 10 rounds are fired to verify function of the rifle. Over here I have a cart full of magazines. These magazines are preloaded with 10 rounds. This is a snail trap system over here. It's a wet trap system that can safely capture the fired round from the rifle. Each rifle comes in, the barrel is pushed all the way in, the magazine is inserted into the rifle, the weapon's charged, and 10 rounds are fired. After that, the magazine's dropped into this bin, the rifle comes out, they check to make sure it's clear, insert a flag safety into the chamber, put it on safe, and then the weapon goes on the rack. Now, if a problem arises during this process, there's a QA checklist here. It's marked on this sheet, the problem, the rifle is set aside, and the technicians take a look at the rifle and fix it. There's a big pile of brass over here to my left. This represents 1 month of test firing here at Windham. They usually keep almost 200,000 rounds on hand to do their test firing.
One thing that the folks at Windham made clear to me was that they take customer service very seriously. When you call Windham with a question or for a warranty issue, you're greeted with a customer service representative located in Maine, not another country.
I'm here with Mark Eliason, who's the VP of Sales and Marketing for Windham. And Mark, I want to thank you for having us out today.
Glad to have you up.
So one of the things that's really endeared me to the company, something I really thought was interesting when I first met you guys at the NRA show, was the story behind Windham. Now, you guys have been in business technically since 2011, but there's quite a bit of backstory there, a really colorful backstory. Can you share some of that with us?
Well, that's correct, Tim. Actually, our heritage is Bushmaster. That's where we all came from, and we're very proud of that. We've learned a lot from that experience in our lives as well. So Windham Weaponry is made up of a lot of employees that were prior with a former employer. And Mr. Dyke, who owned the factory, and still owns the factory, Bushmaster was located here in Windham until early 2011. Back in 2006, when Bushmaster was acquired by a capital investment company, they also acquired some other companies, including Remington. The decision was made to move production to upstate New York, which left quite a few people unemployed in Maine.
Yeah.
Mr. Dyke then came out of retirement at 78 years old, and where he and his son owned the facility here in Maine, decided to see if we could get a new group together, and a lot of experience sitting here.
Yeah.
So we started production in late 2011, and our first production shipped that fall. Had a small group of SKUs to offer initially. The acceptance from the marketplace was incredible, from customers, dealers, distributors, and we've continued to expand upon that, add new models, add new accounts. So at this point, we're up to 65 employees. Very proud of that.
And how many of those 65 employees were former Bushmaster employees?
I would say most all. I would say probably 95% of the employees here currently were formerly employed.
You know, I remember when Bushmaster sold, and then I got the word that they were moving the production facilities. And I know that Windham, or I had known that Windham was a small town for the most part.
Right.
And so that was really kind of a crushing blow for a lot of people, right? So
it sure was for, not just for the employees, but for the surrounding community. Any manufacturing you have, there's a lot of support that goes around it, suppliers, right down to, restaurants and those types of things. So having the employment back here in Windham has been a definite plus for the whole community.
And you guys have covered a lot of ground. I've learned that the number of rifles that you're shipping, you're rapidly approaching the number that you were shipping before. I mean, you guys have really, you didn't start off from scratch. You really had a lot of industry contacts, you had a lot of experience, you pulled all that together, and you've done, a lot of work to get that production up, and you guys are really shipping a lot of product.
That's correct, and that's combined experience with everything, from shipping to purchasing, sales, customer service. That knowledge is intact, and you have the benefit of learning trial and error. So
yeah.
We sit down as a group and find ways to improve what we're doing. Customer comes first. That's crucial to what we do. Keeping our high quality standards and continuing to offer the market what is asked for.
It's a great story, Mark. Thanks for sharing it with us.
Well, thank you.
I hope you guys have enjoyed the tour of the Windham facilities. I know I've had a good time touring the plant, seeing what goes into making of a Windham rifle and meeting some of the people. But what factory tour would be complete without some range time? And that's what we're going to do next. We're going to grab some rifles, some ammo, some people, and head out to the range.